Everyone's talking about getting into cloud engineering, get certified, land a six-figure job, and live the dream. But here's the truth, cloud isn't easy, and buying a course or watching a few tutorials doesn't guarantee anything. So welcome back to the channel, or if you're new here, I'm Sunny, and this is Someone Else's Cloud. In this video, I'm going to share with you my honest roadmap to becoming an Azure Cloud Engineer. Watch until the end of the video and I'll share with you the harsh truth on why most people fail. I'll show you practical ways to learn the skills, GitHub projects you can build right now, and the real world challenges no one tells you about. What does a cloud engineer actually do? Okay, so before we dive into the roadmap, let's define what a cloud engineer actually does. A cloud engineer designs and builds and manages infrastructure in the cloud. You need to understand networking, identity, automation, and security because businesses rely on you to keep their systems running smoothly. Here's something most people don't expect. You'll spend just as much time dealing with people and process issues as you will the tech. You'll be waiting on firewall approvals, chasing down access, raising detailed change requests, and figuring out why a senior engineer's deployment has broken your pipeline. The three-stage roadmap. Okay, so let's break down the roadmap into three practical stages. This isn't about memorizing every Azure service. It's about building a solid base, learning how everything connects, and picking up the skills that help you solve real problems in real-world environments. Stage 1. Build foundations. In this first stage, you'll be building a solid foundation. Before jumping into the Azure ecosystem, you need to understand the core building blocks. Things like operating systems, networking, scripting, and how the Azure portal actually works. This is where you get comfortable with breaking things, and more importantly, learning how to fix them. Start with operating systems, learn some Linux basics, and get familiar with Windows Server. A good source to learn Linux is from Linux Journey, which I'll put the link below. Next up is networking. Understand IP addresses, DNS, routing, and firewalls. You can get some experience from the Try Hack Me networking fundamentals, which I'll also link below. Next up is scripting. Learn a language. PowerShell or Bash will help you automate, test, and export data for analysis. You can also learn Python if you wanted to, but PowerShell and Bash is probably more operating system friendly. And finally, Azure Basics. Set up a free tier account and start deploying things manually. And then there's also the world-renowned John Saville's Azure channel. I think everyone in Azure knows who John Saville is, and basically his channel has a great source of study videos as well as technical deep dives. You could also use ChatGPT like a tutor and fast-track your training, but I'm pretty sure everyone uses it now. I use it all the time to help understand scenarios as well as what-if situations and learning best practices, but obviously you got to take it all with a grain of salt and make sure that you get links to actual reference documentation. In a real-world scenario, you'll run into situations that are far from ideal, like needing to connect a modern Azure network to a 15-year-old on-prem server running Windows 2008. No one knows how it works, but it's still your job to fix it. And let's be honest, most cloud engineers didn't get here by jumping straight into the cloud. Many of them started on a help desk or sysadmin roles, which I've done both. If you're struggling to land a cloud job right away, consider roles that touch infrastructure. Things like desktop support, sysadmin, or a cloud engineer intern. It's a great way to get your foot in the door. Even part-time work or volunteering with non-profits will give you hands-on experience. Document everything you build in GitHub and turn it into a portfolio, or even build your own personal website. You don't need a perfect resume, just real skills and momentum. Stage 2. Learn Azure and infrastructure as code. Now that you have the essentials, it's time to take things further. This stage is all about learning how Azure works at scale and how to manage everything using infrastructure as code. This is where you start thinking like an engineer, not just a beginner. Focus on core Azure services, compute, networking, identity, and storage. You'll also want to learn Terraform or Bicep, because if you're working in cloud, code isn't actually optional anymore. It's how modern infrastructure is built and maintained. At the same time, it's important to understand governance, using things like Azure Policy, management groups, or even landing zone setup using Microsoft's Cloud Adoption Framework. Microsoft Learn is still one of the best free resources available online, especially their guided paths for Azure and certification preparation. HashiCorp has a great tutorial series that walks you through using Terraform with Azure. Communities like Reddit's r/Azure can be surprisingly helpful when you're stuck or need honest advice. If you're aiming for certifications, the role-based Microsoft certs are a solid structure to follow. Start with the fundamentals, the AZ 900, then move to the Azure Administrator AZ 104, which is one of the harder exams due to the broad amount of information you need to learn. And from there you can branch into DevOps, security, or architecture, depending on where you want to go. Certifications help you structure your learning and show recruiters you're proactive and serious. GitHub Copilot is also great for learning, as it can suggest Terraform or Bicep snippets as you type. If you want to get hands-on, start with Microsoft's enterprise-scale landing zones on GitHub. It's a solid example of how to build a well-architected Azure environment. When I was getting into Azure, this stuff didn't exist, but now the well-architected framework as well as the cloud adoption framework is actually used worldwide in most places I've worked so far. And at this point, you'll start facing more complex challenges. Terraform might fail halfway through a deployment. Now half your infrastructure exists and half doesn't. You have to figure out how to clean up the mess and fix a state file without panicking. And coincidentally, I've got a video coming on state management, so make sure you subscribe. Stage 3, becoming an engineer. Now you're getting confident, but this is actually where things get messier. Real production environments are full of weird edge cases, such as you inherit a Terraform repo from a contractor who left 6 months ago, with no documentation, no explanation on variables, and everything's broken right now. Or someone forgot to delete an AKS cluster, $10,000 later it's still running, and now you've been asked to figure out why. Or a certificate expires at 2 AM on a Sunday, and nobody knows where it's managed and the application is currently offline. This is where you go beyond the fundamentals and dive into real engineering practices. You'll be building CI/CD pipelines, running containers, setting up monitoring, and improving security with things like privileged identity management and zero trust. Try building a sample CI/CD pipeline using GitHub Actions or Azure DevOps. Experiment with Docker and AKS to learn how containers run at scale. Set up Azure Monitor in a sandbox environment and simulate alerts. It's the best way to understand observability beyond the basics. AI tools like Copilot or ChatGPT can help you triage faster. I've used them to quickly draft scripts or compare old code or even fast-track demos for this channel. But always double check their output, because production is not the place for blind trust. If you're feeling ambitious, this is also a great stage to try and deploy something modern, like Azure OpenAI for a personal app, or integrating GitHub Copilot into your workflow. The harsh truth: why most people fail. People see a LinkedIn post about someone doubling their salary in 6 months, so they grab a certification and expect job offers to roll in. But they skip the fundamentals. They never practice deploying, troubleshooting, or managing real environments. AI can help, sure, but if you can't troubleshoot without it, you're not ready. Also, be prepared for a competitive job market. There's no guaranteed shortcuts, that's for sure. I'd recommend that you go to meetups to expand your network in people in the industry that you're trying to get into, because that's definitely a cheat code that's probably unspoken. But by building real skills and staying consistent, you'll set yourself apart over time. And remember, there's no guaranteed timeline. Some people land roles within 3 to 6 months, especially if they have prior IT experience. For others, it could take up to a year. What matters is consistency, showing your work, and building real skills, not just chasing certs. Becoming a cloud engineer is tough, but if you made it this far, you've already got the mindset that most people don't. It's not about being perfect, it's about being curious, persistent, and willing to learn from the real-world messiness that doesn't show up in tutorials. I'll drop all the links mentioned in this video below so you can explore them at your own pace. Let me know in the comments where you are in your cloud journey. And make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on the next video. I'll be talking about what makes a great cloud engineer and how to really stand out in 2025. Until then, keep learning, keep building, and don't be afraid to break stuff. And I'll see you in the next one. See ya!